Wajia, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sabrina Antoinette, and I am the Education Programs Assistant at the Gord Downey and Cheney Wenjack Fund. Inspired by Cheney's story and Gord's call to build a better Canada, the Gord Downey and Cheney Wenjack Fund aims to build cultural understanding and create a path towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. Today, I am joining you from Thunder Bay. This land is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, and it is also treaty territory of the Fort William First Nation, signatories to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. It is also where I grew up, so I am tuning in from, or coming live from, my hometown. It's great to be here live on Facebook and YouTube on Louis Riel Day and Métis Week for this special DWF Live. Did you know, just by joining us here today, you are taking a reconciliation? A reconciliation is a meaningful step forward, a meaningful step that moves reconciliation forward. So anytime you're learning about Canada's true history and the experience Indigenous peoples, or learning about the great things Indigenous people have contributed to this country, or build relationships with Indigenous peoples, those are reconciliations. It's great to see everyone here live with us today. Please continue to use the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from, and share any thoughts and questions that come up during today's DWF Live. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Toronto Métis Jiggers. The Toronto Métis Jiggers and Métis Strings are a collective of folks in Toronto who get together to play and dance and true toe tapping Métis style, following the steps of their ancestors through music and dance. Welcome Megan, Teagan, and Alicia from the Toronto Métis Jiggers.
Ani, bonjour. Hello, my name is Teagan Delaronde, and happy Riel Day. I am here from my traditional roots of Drummond Island and Penetang, and I am Métis myself.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, and just like Teagan, my Métis roots come from Drummond Island and then Penetang, and I'm here with Alicia.
Hi everyone, my name is Alicia Bloor. I am Métis originally. Ancestors come from the Red River Settlement, which is in Manitoba, but I'm a proud Métis Nation Ontario citizen, and happy to be here today with you all.
Yes, so we are actually coming live from Toronto City Hall. If you can see in the background here, Toronto. This morning, we actually raised the Métis flag in honor, celebration, and remembrance of Louis Riel. So today, we're actually doing a Métis-styled music and dance workshop with you all. So please get jiggy with it with us, please. So, Megan.
Okay, so before we get into music and dance, I think it's important that we do a Métis 101 so that we're on the same page. I know some of you may already know who the Métis people are, and that's awesome, but it never hurts to be reminded. So Métis people are a post-contact people. Our ancestors come from right here, Turtle Island, and also Europe. So the story goes, as I tell it, our European ancestors, men, came over to Turtle Island, now known as North America. And when they came here, they didn't come with a lot of European women. And so they formed relations with a lot of the First Nations women here. And it was from these relations or unions that mixed children were born. And these children weren't quite Métis yet. But a lot of them married other mixed people. And through this process known as endogamy, mixed people marrying likewise or similar mixed people, you start to see a population forming of mixed people. And these mixed people come from mixed communities. And over time, these mixed communities start to develop a combined identity, a collective identity, and that becomes the Métis Nation. So the Métis Nation, comprised of Métis people or mixed people, we have our own distinct languages. For example, Michif. We have our own unique style of music and dance. We have our unique governance structures, ways of doing things, ways of talking to and approaching each other. So we're going to share with you today a bit of that music and a bit of that dance, and we hope you jig along. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to share with you some of our musical traditions of the Métis. Like many of our cultural traditions, they're often a fusion or a mixture of both our European ancestry and their traditions, as well as our First Nations ancestry and their traditions. So we're going to talk about the musical traditions of the Europeans as well as the First Nations, and combining those together, we have a really unique style of music. Does anyone here know what this instrument is? It's called a fiddle or a violin, and this is the main instrument for the Métis. And traditionally, they would have played the fiddle. Singing was also really popular and important in our communities. So fiddle was something that's been passed down to me from generation to generation. My great-grandfather was a fiddle player, and his great-grandfather, and all the way down the line. So fiddle players are in my family, in my Métis family, and I'm proud to be sharing with you some of our Métis cultural heritage through the fiddle today. So when you combine European fiddle with First Nations, some of their traditions of musical culture, such as singing, drumming, combine those together, we have a really cool, unique style of fiddle music called Métis fiddling. And so I'm going to demonstrate for you what that is, because it can be like, what does that sound like? What does that feel like? So I'm going to play for you a European style fiddle tune called Fisher's Hornpipe. And then I'm going to stop really briefly and play for you the Métis version of that tune called La Double Jig. And it's your job to listen for some of those differences. Now I'm going to share with you some of those differences so that you can really hear and hear for those and feel for those. So one of the characteristics of the Métis fiddle is it often sounds louder. So between the two of them, you're going to see and listen and hear that the Métis one is louder. So the second one is louder than the first one. Another thing that you might hear, hopefully you'll hear, is that one sounds faster than the other one. So in the first one that I'm going to play, the European one, will sound slower than the second one, which is the Métis one. The Métis one will sound faster. And that comes from our First Nation side, the drum, and that syncopated rhythms of the drum and the singing coming in together and really making this music unique. And sometimes people hear things that are lower in tones versus higher in tones, but that might be a little hard for you to understand or to hear. But yeah, those are some of the characteristics of Métis fiddle music. So here we go. European first, pause, and then Métis one. All right, here we go, the Métis one. There we go. So I hope you heard that the Métis one sounded faster, louder, and hope you enjoyed and learned a little bit feel of that fiddle music.
Okay, if you heard anything else that you'd like to mention, please throw in the chat and we'll talk about that later. Another instrument or accompaniment that we want to talk about today is the spoons. So Métis people really come into like popularity during the fur trade, but also we like our ethnogenesis or our beginnings are before then. But during the fur trade, we had the fiddle that we carried around in our canoes, and we wanted to play alongside our fiddle tunes, and we didn't have a lot on hand, so we made use of things we had, like spoons. So spoons can be played with these type of spoons, which I'll bring a little closer so you can see, or regular spoons. But for you guys today, on your laps, I'm going to teach you how to do this right now. So you're going to use your one hand, so say your right hand, and you're going to hit it on your thigh once, down. Then into your hand on top of your thigh, you're going to go back up, and then back down to your thigh, down, down, up, 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 down. So if you're following along right now, you might be like, what is this trying to imitate? If you listen closely now, you might be able to hear the beat that we're trying to replicate. So that's what these fancy spoons can make a sound like. If you know what that kind of sounds like, put it in the chat and we'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, this is the spoons. We'll give you a second or a chance, I guess, to play with us in a song in a few minutes after we talk about why we're here today.
All right, so as you know, today is November 16th. That means it's Louis Riel Day. We've got a picture of Louis Riel right there. So this is what he looks like. Louis Riel was born in Manitoba. Before it was actually Manitoba, he was born in the Red River settlement, which is a Métis community. He brought the province of Manitoba basically into existence and into confederation. But on top of that, he was a renowned Métis political leader and fought for Métis rights, such as land rights, culture rights, language rights, political rights. So he was a huge advocate for the Métis Nation all across the homelands, but especially within the western area of the province. And he fought against encroachment from the Canadian government, as the Canadian government was encouraging more people to settle in the West. And he fought not just for Métis people, but also along the people who had already settled there for a long time, and of course, our First Nations relatives. So we really look to Louis Riel as a guide for how to assert our own rights as Métis people, even today, 140 years after his death. So Louis Riel is a renowned leader to Métis people. And actually, I'll bring up Alicia, and she can talk a little bit about his involvement in the Northwest Resistance and the Red River Resistance.
All right. So Megan was sharing with you some of the rights that Louis Riel fought for, and one of them was land rights. So in 1864, before Canada was a country, the Canadian government was actually selling the land that Métis people and First Nations people had occupied, had settled, had farms there and livelihoods there for generations. And the Canadian government was selling that land that was not theirs to sell. And that's where you hear of the first resistance called the Red River Resistance. There was a big fight for that. Louis Riel was the leader for that resistance. And unfortunately, they lost that battle. Many of the people, the Métis people and those who were living in Red River settlement continued westwards and to a place called Batoche, Saskatchewan. And that's where we see the next resistance movement happen that Louis Riel also fought against, which is in 1885. And 1885 is called the Northwest Resistance, and it's fought in Batoche, Saskatchewan. And same deal goes with that location as well. The Métis had settled there, and again, the land was being sold under their feet again. So they took a stand at Batoche and said enough is enough. And Louis Riel and as well as Gabriel Dumont fought against that and resisted that, and Louis Riel was actually gave himself up in that battle, and was wrongfully convicted and hung in 1885, November 16th, 1885. And the significance of us being here at City Hall is actually more than you might realize, because it was actually in Toronto where the opposite side, the Canadian government, the European side, the settlers, actually brought and encouraged people to go to Saskatchewan in 1885 and fight the Métis, to squash the Métis, to repress the Métis. These are all words that they used in many of the news clippings of the day. And when the men came back after winning the battle, there was a parade, and it was a glorious day, according to the newspaper articles of the time, the most glorious day in Toronto. And that's pretty scary to think about today. But last year in August, not this year, but the previous August, the City of Toronto mayor actually apologized to the Métis people across the homeland for Toronto's involvement in that wrongful involvement in that repression against the Métis in 1885. So it's pretty cool that we're standing here today, live streaming about Louis Riel on Louis Riel Day, that we hung many flags today to celebrate him, his legacy, and the wrongfulness that many of the governments in Toronto and Ontario fought and supported squashing the Métis. So yeah, should we play a tune?
Yeah, we should.
Let's play Louis Riel Reel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in honor of Louis Riel, we're gonna play Louis Riel Reel, and you guys can practice
Your spoons.
your spoons. All right.
Hey, Megan, you got your pan spoon or you have a real
I can
spoon?
play hand spoons.
Okay, remember, we are going down, up, down, 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 down, up, down. During the song that Alicia's going to play very shortly, it's going to be fast. So if you lose your beat, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, and then work your way to get there faster, okay? But yeah, after you, Alicia.
All right. Here we go. Are we ready? All right.
Great job if you tried. Great job if you didn't. Next, we're gonna do a little demonstration for you. And then I think we're gonna talk about what we just did, and then maybe have you guys try it if you'd like.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce the dance. This is the Red River Jig. It's also a fiddle tune and a dance that's known far and wide all across the Métis homelands. Different communities have different variations of the way they dance to this tune. We're going to show you ours. It starts with a basic step, goes to a fancy step, goes back to a basic step, and so on and so forth. So we'll show you a few steps here.
I'll do two. You, let me. Okay, so if you'd like to try, then I encourage you to stand up now and we'll learn how to do it. Give you a few seconds. And if you'd like, come on camera. If not, that's okay.
And if you're not able to stand up, you could also do chair jigging or clap along, play your spoons, whatever you feel works best for you. Okay, so we're going to teach you a basic step first. This is like the fundamental step in Métis jigging, and we often start with our right foot. So we're going to take our right foot and we're going to march on the spot. So step, and then we naturally transition to our left foot, step, back to our right, and then we're going to take our left foot and kind of scuff the ground. It doesn't have to be a hard kick or anything like that, just a light scuff. So you put that all together, that looks like with our right foot, step, 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 scuff. And then that sets us up to do the exact same thing, but reverse. So we've got our left foot ready. We're going to march down on our left foot first. Step, 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 and now scuff with our right. So I'm going to show you what that looks like from behind, and Teagan will face you.
Okay.
So again, ready from the top, starting with our right foot. Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Awesome. Now you're going to add like a little bounce or hop in there because Métis jigging is very bouncy. It's very energetic. So you find out where that kind of fits best for you, what feels the most natural. I find it works for me when I do a little bounce with every step. So it will be like step, 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 scuff.
For me, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff.
Nice. That has a really nice rhythm to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, so let's try that once more together, and then we'll show you the first fancy step. So with our right foot, ready? Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Step, 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 scuff. Right on. And then I'll pass it to you for our first fancy step.
So like Megan said, the Red River Jig is comprised of two different sections, the low melody and the high melody. We just did the basic step. So after that is when we do a fancy step. So you might have seen it when we were demonstrating it for you, that we were doing our basic step, and then we did some cool little fast feet there, and then went back to our basic step, and then did fancy steps again. So for our first fancy step that we're going to learn today, we're going to keep it a little easier. We're just going to point with our toes, straight in front. Point, 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 point.
You can
point.
add a little bounce in there or go double time if you like.
Yeah.
Double time works really well with fiddle music because it's got some added abrupt beats, but also that syncopation. So this is normal pace and then double time.
Double time's a little too hard for me, but Megan's definitely got it under wraps.
And it kind of sounds like the spoons, that horse beat, which I think is really awesome.
Okay, and then after our first fancy step, we go back to our basic step. So step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff. After another round of our basic step, another fancy step. So this time, yeah, we'll just go outward. So starting that way.
So for
Just
us,
pointing
it's to the right, and for you, it's to the left.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right.
Cool.
You can get a little fancy with it though and like do an inward spin with it. Or you can go double time.
Yeah, you can make it your own, make it special.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Add some personality to it. And then after that, so we just did another fancy step. We go back to a basic step, which is again, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff. And then we're back here again. Another fancy step. What should we do this time?
I think we should try and combine them both.
Combine them. Okay, I think we can do that. So combining them. Point forward, forward, side, side. Forward, forward, side, side.
Good job.
Can we do it a little faster now? Yeah? Forward, forward, side, side. Forward, forward, side, side. Forward, forward, side, side. Yeah, Megan's got some style in there.
So you don't have to be stationary the entire time, especially when you're doing the basic jig. We actually encourage people to walk about the room with their basic step and, you know, take up all the space that's there for you. Take up the whole dance floor. You don't have to just stay in one spot.
Okay, then after another fancy step, we go back to our basic step, and you know it already, hopefully. Step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff. And let's do one more. So for our last one that we're going to do together, we'll teach you one, but when we just do it all together, which we will very shortly, I encourage you to make up whatever you want to be your fancy step. But for now, let's just do...
Be flossing.
Flossing.
Yeah, Alicia says you can floss if you'd like for your fancy step. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll teach you this one. Crossover and back.
That's the one I did for my demonstration. Nice.
And you make it a little faster.
Add some hops in there. Give it your own kind of flair or style. And Métis jigging is all about having fun. They sometimes have competitions, especially out west, but really for right now, we just want you to give it a try, especially if you've never tried it before. It's always awesome to learn new things. And don't worry, no one's judging you. We're not judging you. We just want you to celebrate Louis Riel Day with us. And this in itself, Métis jigging, Métis music, is kind of an act of resistance just because we're being Métis. And so that's how we like to see it. And we're really glad that you're joining us for this. So thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do 4 changes, starting with our basic step and then doing fancy steps right after. So we taught you for basic step. Again, it's step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff, step, 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 scuff. And then
Pointing forward. For the
pointing
first
forward.
Yep.
And then our second fancy step was point to the side.
And then it would be back to basic. Our third fancy step was combining our first 2 fancy steps. So forward, forward, side, side, forward, forward, side, side. Back to our basic. And then the music changes. And we do our final and 4th fancy step, which is the crossover. Or if you've got something special you like to do, then you're totally welcome to do that too. Exactly. Just
Anything
like
you
that.
want. Okay, if you want to try this, let's do it, okay? Alicia, we've got the tunes over here ready. In true Métis fashion, let's do it.
All right.
This is the Red River Jig.
Starting with your right foot or whatever foot you want.
Pointing forward.
Back to basic. Forward, side, forward, side, side. And fancy step.
Good job, everyone.
And that's the Red River Jig. So at the very end, maybe some people can come on and show us their fancy steps. That'd be awesome. And I'd love to see them. How are we doing for time right now? 2:30. Okay. Should we do another dance? Yes?
Why not?
Okay.
Sure.
So we're going to teach you one more dance. This is actually a social dance. It's called the 7-step. And traditionally, it would have been done in a circle and done with partners. Just for the ease of, doing this on live and probably the spaces that you're in, we're going to do no circles and no partners. But crazy enough, the 7-step, this dance, actually used to be a social dating dance. So if you could think how that works, maybe you could ask us that later if you want to know more. But the 7-step is pretty easy. If you know to count to 7, you can definitely do this dance. So if you want to learn, stand up and let's follow along. Okay, starting with your left foot, we're going to take 7 steps forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Same foot, going back 7 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To the left now, we're going to walk 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, clap. And then to the right, 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to spin in a circle. No clap. And then we're going to do it again. Walk to the left. 1, 2, 3, clap. Walk to the left. All right. Which way is that? Right? 1, 2, 3. And spin in a circle again. And then that's the whole dance. But we just repeat it and repeat it again.
Yeah, so we've made some modifications. This dance is a little bit harder, like Teagan said. It would normally be done with partners in a circle. You'd be going opposite directions, and the pace of the music would get faster and faster because fiddle players are tricky. They like to throw things at you when you're not expecting it, but that's like the entire fun of Métis jigging. So this is like a light version. So we really, really encourage you to get up and dance, burn some of those calories off from lunch, burn off that extra energy, and have fun with the 7-step.
Yeah.
So let's put it to music.
Fiddler.
Okay.
Starting on your left foot. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
done.
That was amazing. That was so good. Whenever I think of jigging, I always think of back home because during Christmas time, there's always a fiddle player and there's always like the Red River Jig playing or doing the one in the circle and you're switching and it's all confusing. But yeah, totally reminds me of Christmas time. Perfect time for right now. I actually used to win all of the jigging competitions. So I was young though, so I don't know how to do it anymore. Don't ask me to. But yeah, so how long have everyone been jigging for? Like, how long have you been playing the fiddle?
Who wants to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, we'll go from most experienced to least.
So yeah, I learned to play the fiddle. I started when I was 8 years old, and then I've been playing ever since. So I've been playing for most of my life now, and it's one of my favorite instruments, or it is my favorite instrument. And yeah, I really enjoy it. I also do some jigging as well. Whenever there's another fiddle player around to play those tunes, and sometimes I get up on the dance floor and jig as well. And yeah, I've had lots of teachers and mentors in my time as a fiddle player. And I have the privilege of learning from many Indigenous elders, which is really cool and unique. And one of them being from John Arcand from Saskatchewan. Learned from him, as well as Teddy Boy Hool, who was from Manitoba, and also close to where my ancestry and my great-grandfathers were from, in Ebb and Flow, Bacon Ridge, Manitoba, as well as from here in Ontario in Moose Factory from James Chichu, and I also learned a few tunes from an elder in Nunavut as well. So yeah.
I've been jigging for about 5 years, maybe a little bit more on and off. And I first learned when I was, I think, 18 or 19, so it hasn't been all too long. I learned from community, so watching other people, going to workshops here and there, learning from people like Alicia, Anne Riel up in Sault Ste. Marie, Jamie Coble. I went to one of her workshops. It was awesome. She's from the Ottawa area. Ginny Gano, also from Ottawa area. So just being out in community, meeting other Métis jiggers, picking up on a few steps, staging steps, and then I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so I've only been jigging for about 3 years, three and a half, let's say, at the most. And actually, Megan was the one who to teach me mostly all my steps, and just again, like being through community and going to different events, youth conference that we have, the Métis Nation of Ontario every year. We always jig a bunch, and the first time I went there, I was overwhelmed with the amount of jigging that was done, but I loved it. And then Megan and I worked together that summer, and I learned how to jig through her. And then since then, we've been jigging together, basically. So yeah.
That's awesome. Anyway, there isn't any classes on camera, unfortunately, but we are going to take a question from the chat. So, Alicia, do you have a favorite song to play on the fiddle?
That's a good question.
Ooh, that is a really good question. I have a lot of favorites. I will say that I do enjoy the Red River Jig, especially when there is dancers as well. I like to see their fancy footwork going while I play. And then a slow tune that I really enjoy is called the Teardrop Waltz.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a really nice one. And I played that as well today for those flag raisings that we did here at City Hall and Elkins Park. So yeah, I would say those are, out of two genres, fast and slow, those are my favorites.
I feel like the Red River Jig is most recognizable. If you hear fiddle playing, it's most likely the Red River Jig. So, and another question from the chat is, can you tell us about the sashes you are wearing?
For sure.
Oh, good question.
Okay, so I'll show you here this one. This is actually the Louis Riel sash. So it's similar to the sash that Louis Riel wore. This one's made out of alpaca wool. So we wear these sashes around our waist, kind of as a homage to our ancestors in the history of the fur trade. So they were worn originally to prevent against the leading cause of death among voyageurs. Lots of people guess drowning, and that's a really good guess, but it was actually to prevent against hernias, strangulated hernias. And so that happens when you're doing lots of heavy lifting and your insides essentially tear. And you don't want that to happen in the middle of the bush because there's no medical team that can really save you. And so you would wear this to prevent it from happening in the first place or to prevent it from getting worse. But in addition to that, they could also be used as pockets. You could slide things in there. You could use the fringes as an emergency sewing kit. You could use it as an emergency bridle or saddle blanket or lifeline if someone fell out of the canoe. So it was really a very useful multi-tool, and sometimes we jokingly refer to it as Batman's utility belt because it was such a vital piece to have with you. And it didn't take up a lot of room in the canoe either. You could just wear it around your waist, use it as a pocket or to keep your coat closed. Super, super handy. Now it's not just worn by voyageurs, but worn by all Métis people, lots of times at special events like today, Louis Riel Day. And you can identify other Métis people in the community by them wearing their sash. And it's a very nice thing to see. And it's an aspect of our pride and sharing that pride, not being afraid to be Métis anymore, sometimes like our ancestors were, because those times were really hard to be a Métis person. But now things are changing for the better, and we're being loud and proud about who we are. So these are all reasons why we wear the sash today.
Awesome. So we have one more question from the chat, and that is, why are Métis communities separate from First Nations when that's their ancestors? When that's their ancestors, sorry?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe we could each give like a small answer,
sure.
and then
You want me to start?
sure if you want.
So historically, we do come from First Nations communities. So we're also distinct from First Nations communities. So we might have First Nations ancestry, but we as Métis view ourselves as distinct and separate from our First Nations relatives. Our traditions, our language, our ways of life and our ways of doing kind of evolved with our European side and our First Nation side to create ourselves distinct from either communities. So a lot of people say that a lot of Métis people say that they don't feel like fully European or fully First Nations. It's because we're not. We fit into this own unique community that's based on both. So we live separate in separate communities because of our historic upbringing, the ethnogenesis that Megan described earlier, our beginning, if you will. And we still remain distinct because of the way we continue to practice and hold ourselves to be Métis.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Just to try and tack on to that. So there are First Nations communities and there are Métis communities. Essentially, back during the fur trade, a lot of Métis people didn't quite feel like they were First Nations or could identify with their First Nations relatives or kin, nor did they really find that they fit in with the European people. And so they started to form their own kind of communities and families. And so there are communities like historic Sault Ste. Marie, historic Georgian Bay, Mattawa, Ottawa River area. These are all distinct Métis communities in Ontario that were home to Métis people. And this is where our Métis culture and way of life and history flourished. So while we are friends with and connected with First Nations in a lot of different ways, we have our own communities, our own traditions that make us Métis. Mm-hmm. Anything to add on?
No, other than I like to bring it to language.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my ancestors were actually midship speakers, so that's the language of the Métis. We were also First Nation. We spoke a lot of First Nations languages as well as European languages. So many of our ancestors were multilingual, many languages that they knew. Were often the bridge between both worlds, between First Nations as well as European communities. We were often the ones translators. If you go in the documents of the past, you can see that many of our ancestors, you can connect yourself back to many of the ancestors who were translators in between both First Nations and European. We also had our own distinct language, and that language again was a mixture of primarily French, as well as, depending on where that Métis community was, either Cree or Ojibwe, sometimes both. But yeah, and that's why I think that's how we were, we're unique, because we have our own language and way of life, and yeah.
That's a
Good
really
question.
great question. Very in depth.
Very, yeah.
I hope you understood what we said.
Yeah, we can hear you great. But I just want to thank you for joining us today, Megan, Teagan, and Alicia. And a special thank you to everyone who participated in today's DWF Live. DWF Live continues next month with story time with Métis Santa on December 21st. And I just want to say, miigwech, and everyone have a good day.
Thank you so much for having us and for joining us.
Yeah, miigwech, Marcy.
Marcy, we say Marcy.
Take care, everyone. Merci, miigwech.